All right, everybody, welcome to another deep dive. And today we are looking at something pretty visual.
Yeah.
We've got a chart
We do.
that spans over 100 years.
128 to be exact.
Well, wow. Okay, so 128 years of gender representation at the Summer Olympics.
That's right.
And I think that's going to be really interesting to look at visually.
I think so too.
I think when you see a chart like that laid out in front of you, you can really get a sense of the changes over time.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can really see the evolution.
Yeah, and some of it's pretty dramatic.
Oh, for sure.
When you think about the Olympics, back in the day, it was a total
sausage fest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, no women allowed.
Nope.
Which is crazy to think about now.
I know, it's mind-blowing, isn't it?
It is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So we're going to kind of go through this chart and talk about some of the key changes.
Sounds good.
Some of the milestones.
Yeah.
And also some of the things that maybe haven't changed as much as we might have expected.
Right, like some of those sports that are still kind of lagging behind.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of gender representation.
So let's dive right in.
Okay.
Okay, so looking at...
In the data skies we take our flight. Trends and numbers come to life. Colors and charts, they dance and play. Showing truth in a visual way. In GenderDecoded we uncover truths and stories like no other. In the data waves we find the secret maps of humankind.
You start looking at this chart and you realize right away things were very different back then.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just starting with the fact that the first modern Olympics were a total sausage fest.
Oh, yeah, all men.
All men.
All men, no women.
No women allowed.
It's crazy how far we've come.
Could you imagine that today?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And what's even crazier, some sports just started letting women compete, like recently.
I know, it's hard to believe.
So how did we go from like 0 women to, almost equal representation? That's what we're going to get into today.
Yeah, breaking down the barriers, the evolution of the games.
Exactly. And this chart, it really helps you see that evolution.
I'm excited to break it down.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So to kind of set the stage, let's go back to those early games.
Okay, yeah, back to the beginning.
1896, Athens, the birthplace of the modern Olympics.
The original games, right?
The OG games.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, no women allowed.
And it makes sense when you think about the historical context.
Yeah.
Back then.
I mean, was anyone surprised?
No, not at the time. It was just the norm.
Yeah, societal norms were very different.
Totally. Like, the whole idea of women even playing sports was controversial.
Right, seen as unladylike or even dangerous.
Exactly. Like, oh, their delicate frames can't handle it.
And this is going to sound crazy, but some people actually thought that physical activity could, harm a woman's ability to have children.
I know, wild, right. But those were the prevailing beliefs back then. It's just a totally different world. Yeah, a different world.
But even in those early games, there were a few, tiny little cracks starting to appear in that wall of exclusion.
Oh, yeah, there were a few.
And you can actually see this on the chart.
Uh-huh.
Like, if you look around the 1900s,
okay, yeah,
little pops of pink start to show up.
A little bit of pink, not a lot.
Not a lot, but it's there.
Yeah.
So what sports were those? What sports were, ahead of their time?
Well, tennis and golf were some of the first to include women's feats.
Interesting. Why do you think that was?
I think it had a lot to do with how those sports were perceived.
Okay.
They weren't seen as, rough or overly strenuous.
They're more like leisurely activities, right?
Exactly. They were more socially acceptable for women to participate in.
So it's like society was dipping its toes into the idea of women in sports.
Yeah, just testing the waters.
Little by little.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we've got these little pops of pink signaling the first women in the games.
It's a start.
It's a start.
Mm-hmm.
But then things really start to pick up in the mid-20th century.
Oh, yeah, things start to change.
The chart, visually explodes with more pink.
It's
like someone spilled a bottle of pink paint on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's mainly in sports like swimming and athletics.
Yeah, track and field. Those were kind of the game changers, right?
Those were big ones.
And it makes sense because those are classic Olympic sports,
The core of the games.
the heart of the games. So you start to see women breaking records, winning medals.
Becoming household names.
Yeah. And that really helped change public perception, I think.
Definitely. Showing what women are truly capable of.
Right. Proving they can compete at the highest level.
Exactly. Shattering those old stereotypes.
So we're seeing this, wave of progress, more women and more sports.
Yeah, a real shift in momentum.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing.
No, definitely not.
I mean, some sports took, way longer to catch up.
Yeah, some were pretty late to the party.
Really late. I'm talking, only added women's events in recent decades.
I know, it's kind of surprising.
Rhythmic gymnastics, for instance, wasn't even an Olympic sport until 1984.
Wow, that recent.
I know. And what about, synchronized swimming?
Yeah, that one too.
Those are sports that are, almost entirely dominated by women.
Yeah, they're known for grace, artistry.
But it took forever for them to even be included in the games.
Why do you think that is? What took so long for some sports to embrace, gender balance?
That's a great question, and I honestly don't have a simple answer.
It's a complex issue.
Yeah, super complex.
But I think part of it has to do with how different sports are structured.
Okay, yeah.
Some sports, because of their, perceived physical demands or their traditions, were just slower to adapt to the idea of women competing.
They had these deeply ingrained ideas about what was masculine and what was feminine.
Exactly, and those ideas took a long time to break down.
But the fact that they did eventually change,
Yeah.
that says a lot.
It shows progress.
It shows the power of, advocacy and changing societal norms.
People speaking out, demanding change.
Yeah, and eventually those demands couldn't be ignored.
And the games had to evolve.
Right. The Olympics, they had to evolve to reflect the changing world.
Yeah, to be more inclusive.
So fast forward to 2012, the London Olympics.
A big moment.
A huge moment. Because for the first time ever, every single participating country included female athletes.
That's incredible.
I remember watching the opening ceremony and it was just this incredible wave of emotion.
Powerful imagery.
Seeing all those women from every corner of the globe marching in together.
Yeah, a true symbol of progress.
We've come a long way, baby.
We have. And looking even further ahead to the 2024 Paris Olympics.
Yeah, Paris.
We're seeing near-perfect gender balance in most sports.
Almost there.
It's really impressive.
But let's be real, complete gender parity.
Yeah.
That's still a work in progress.
There's still room for improvement.
So, for those who might not be familiar with the term,
Okay.
what does gender parity actually mean in the context of the Olympics?
So it means having equal representation of men and women in all aspects of the games.
Okay.
Not just participating, but also in leadership roles, coaching, media coverage, you name it.
So where are we still seeing those disparities? Which areas need the most work?
Well, some team sports still lag behind in terms of female participation.
Okay.
And certain disciplines, like Greco-Roman wrestling, remain predominantly male.
Interesting.
It raises some questions,
Yeah.
Should we be striving for inclusion even in disciplines that have historically been seen as, masculine?
Right. Should we be challenging those assumptions?
Exactly. And what about the future? Will we ever reach a point where the Olympics become truly gender neutral?
Gender-neutral Olympics.
Yeah, where there's no distinction between men's and women's events.
It's a really interesting thought.
Or will certain distinctions always remain, based on physiological differences or the traditions of specific sports?
I don't know. It's a really complex issue with no easy answers.
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about.
It is. But hey, look how far we've already come.
It's incredible.
From 0 women in 1896 to almost equal representation today.
It's a testament to all the athletes and advocates who fought for change.
Absolutely. They paved the way.
They did.
So what do you think, listeners? What does the future of gender representation in sports look like to you?
What kind of world do you want to see?
Will we reach complete parity? Or will new challenges emerge?
It's a conversation worth having.
It is. Keep thinking about it. Keep talking about it.
And most importantly, keep pushing for a more inclusive and equitable world of sports.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive.
It's been a good one.
Until next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.